The forever controversial topic of diet. I don't even know if we want to get there because I feel like the conversation around diet is one of the most, uh, just endless information that tells you eggs are good, endless information that tells you eggs are bad, and it seems like there's no real way to get to a definitive conclusion on any of that,
Right.
other than processed foods bad, right? I mean, whole foods good,
Right.
right? I don't know if you want to get any deeper into the weeds on that, or
I'm not here to settle the debate about whether eggs are good for you or bad for you. If your listeners tuned into the podcast to get a definitive answer on that, I'm sorry to disappoint them. I'm not here to settle that debate. So that debate rages on. The way I go about this, a couple things I'll touch on. One, right now, I'm currently 18 days into the month of January, sober January. So I take January every year to kind of refocus my inputs, what I'm putting in my body,
right.
and take that opportunity just to cleanse out my system and make sure I'm not taking in any alcohol. In addition to that, I'm also tracking what I eat pretty religiously this month. And so I would also encourage listeners who are thinking about getting serious about their fitness to even for a week, for a few days, for a month, whatever you can possibly do, is to take a look at what you are eating. Because a lot of times you'll be shocked. For me, it wasn't that shocking because I've done this before. It was landing about where I thought it would. But in general, for the mass population, if you actually truly track what you put into your body, you'd probably be pretty surprised about how many calories you're taking in, how much fat you're taking in, all that stuff. So that's another thing that I can't encourage people enough to do, is to actually track their food intake for a little while. Having said all that, what should you put into your body? The way that I approach this is I do eat processed foods. There's kind of a spectrum for processed foods. I mean, ultra processed down to bread. I mean, I eat bread. Personally, I don't consider it to be an ultra processed food. People have been eating bread for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
What I try to do is minimize the things that my ancestors centuries ago would not recognize as food. So they would probably not know what Doritos potato chips are. They would not recognize that. They wouldn't understand what to even do with a potato chip bag. They might even try to eat the bag because they weren't sure what in the heck it was. So only try, and deep down, I think people, there's some confusion about what's healthy and what's not. But I think deep down, people kind of have a food conscience where they know I could probably be making a better decision than this. But essentially, I just try to eat as much minimally processed food as I can. And that includes, of course, lots of fruits and vegetables, the things that we've seen ever since grade school on a food pyramid. The other thing I would also point out, though, which can get tricky if you are trying to stick with a relatively plant-centric diet or a vegan or vegetarian diet, is protein intake. Protein is the building block to lean muscle mass, and so you really want to try to shoot what the recommendation is by whichever governing agency you look at is pretty low. It's kind of like a recommend minimum daily allowance. If you're truly trying to put on lean muscle mass, the accepted target that you should look at is for your ideal body weight. If I'm trying to be 175, I would want to have about 175 grams of protein a day. And that's hard. It's not easy to do that. And so I would also challenge people to not only track their caloric intake, but take a look at their protein intake. When I did that several years ago, or a couple years ago, I was only eating about half the recommended amount of protein to get the muscle mass increases that I was looking for. So to sum up, don't get too lost in the reads on nutrition. Most people, I think, have a good food conscience when they're really honest with themselves and they know what's something good to eat and something bad. Try to minimize the amount of ultra high processed foods that are out there. If your ancestors wouldn't recommend it or wouldn't know what it is, it's probably not something that you should be putting in your body. Try to incorporate as much fresh fruits and vegetables as you can. And also just try to hit your protein target, which if you are trying to keep the amount of animal protein down in your diet, take a look at, you can Google, plant-based substitutes for protein, and also maybe find a vegetarian or vegan protein powder to use as a supplement. You don't just want to drink scoop after scoop after scoop of vegetarian protein powder, but incorporate some of that into your diet to help to get that protein level where you want it to be.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Cutitta and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by ToBA Financial. For Jason Cutitta, investment advisory services are offered through ToBA Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration.